right, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. DawnNews English is kind of looking to have a discussion around menstrual hygiene in particular, because it's been coming up these days in the media. We know what's happening in the country. It's really, really sad, and it's also unfortunately opened up these avenues to so many other issues that we have existing in the country. We're joined here today by these three experts in the field. So I don't need to give you any sort of background on this. There's been much debate surrounding, what should be included in relief packages being sent to flood hit areas in particular. There's been articles written. The ones I've seen, unfortunately, have been written by men. So I don't know how much, we can kind of take that discourse forward. So I'll ask you guys to comment on this, just to start off with. What do you think, in your opinion, should be included in relief packages that are being sent to flood hit areas currently?
I would just like to start off by saying there are two kinds of discussions that are happening right now. One is a very basic discussion. Should we even send menstrual health products at all? Because everyone's like, oh, they don't have food, they don't care about pads, for example. But we don't realize that menstruation is not going to stop just because you had a flood. Menstruation did not stop for the pandemic. We were sending relief packages for menstruating women even during COVID. And right now, I just don't understand. It's so beyond me that we have to have this discussion.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for the last few weeks, and it's exhausting to convince people that, this is needed. The discussion around what should be sent is next, but just the first step that, this is important. Just because they do not have food or shelter doesn't mean that they don't need this. It's not secondary. This is not something you can ignore. This is not something that's going to stop. So that is the first step for someone like us who's, on ground working with relief workers and, first aid workers. And we have to even advocate with them that, this is what they need. You can't ignore this. So, for me, talking about the product is actually really, really, really secondary at this point in time, because being an organization that is focused on education and awareness, what product we need to send and what product women are using and what product should be promoted is something that's not important. Do they have enough resources is important. So for me, that is a bigger question, a bigger concern at the moment in the country.
And I do think, I'm so glad you actually took that discussion there immediately, because I think the kind of root cause of the issue is the understanding behind menstrual hygiene as well. In the first place, that's the reason we're having to have these exhausting discussions at a time like this, I think. So, any other comments on that from anybody?
Menstrual Hygiene Management, or MHM, we're forgetting the management part, right? MHM does not stand for menstrual hygiene materials, right? So
that's a very good
whatever
point.
Material you're sending, the debate is not, which is the best, right? We have pads, we have tampons, menstrual cups, which, maybe not, that doesn't fit in Pakistani context. There's no moral value assigned to a, menstrual material. It's literally the menstruator's own preference. So when I think about, okay, what are we sending? My first thing is, you need to ask the women in the community, in the areas that you are going to, right? You can conduct a rapid needs assessment in these areas. It's like, I know resources are limited, people want to help right away, but I think it's really important to ask women. We shouldn't assume. I know there's also a debate that rural women don't use pads, which I think is very inaccurate. I'm based in Islamabad. We just did this survey in, slum areas. Women, even in urban areas, are using cloth, reusable cloth. So it's not to me, the material is not important. It's, are you asking yourself, is the material that I'm choosing to send, will they be able to use it? How will they dispose of it? Are you also supplementing that material with, soap, clean water, or, maybe a bucket or something for disposal? So again, thinking about the management, right? Our periods are not just, changing a pad or changing the material. It's also the hygiene practices related to it. So I wish the discussion could kind of focus on the management aspect and not just on a debate on, which materials we need to send.
You are very right, because when a woman is menstruating, somehow she is open to a lot of diseases itself, because it is a natural process. It is completely natural. But since when you're using a pad, it doesn't matter, again, like my fellow said, the material doesn't matter, because I think during this time, despite the fact that I usually don't encourage the use, but yes, clothes should be is something which can be given in a continuous supply as well, because it depends. Because once I'm sending a package, I just give her, say, a month amount of sanitary pads, or maybe for 2 months, maybe for 3 months, but she's gonna menstruate for long, and we don't know how soon they're gonna go back to their normal routines. Nobody knows that. So I think the focus should be overall health, not just the menstruation part. I mean, it is the 70%. I think this is something we should talk about, but there are a lot of diseases that every female right now who has been, displaced because of the flood, she is so much prone to right now. Other than this issues that are related to menstruation as well. So I think we should also discuss that, because the infections that are caused in vagina, they all are ascending infections. They can travel up to her body. So they are also very dangerous for her as well. A whole scenario should be taken as an opportunity. I think when we are sending off pads or whatever we're sending off, I think this is the right time when we can also educate the female about proper usage of such products as well. Because even before the flood, I know a lot of families, they have no concept of using sanitary products, or not just the pads, but many other sanitary products like vaginal washes. They have no concept of that. So I think this should be taken as an opportunity when we can educate, especially our young girls. So yeah, we can talk about that as well.
No, I think you've all made excellent points in terms of just what the actual focus should be. Sana, you were saying that I don't even know why it's about the materials. Sidra, you just mentioned the whole fact about the fact that it should be about management, like menstrual health management more than anything else. And then Dr. Shafik, you just mentioned that this is an opportunity. So I think just the opportunity bit in particular, for me personally, I call this the brown bag taboo. Okay, because this is, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. If you go to a store to this day, still it's a thing, brown bag hai, usme dale. And I think it's these little things that perpetuate this whole culture of shame. Perhaps, right? So, I mean, what do you think in your opinion, all three of you really, what do you think in your opinion is how can the discussion and how can this opportunity be capitalized? I don't know if capitalize is the right word, but how can we use this for the advantage of the women going forward, and use this sort of crisis? Unfortunately, it's a crisis at the end of the day, but like you said, it's an opportunity. So how do you think we can take that forward?
I was just talking in a Twitter space last night, and we were having the same discussion on menstrual hygiene for flood victims in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. And I said this, and I've always said this: whenever there's hatred or backlash coming when it is about menstrual health, mm-hmm. it is a huge opportunity, because that's the only time we are talking about menstruation in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. When it is about hate, when somebody is hating on you. Otherwise, we are not talking about menstruation because we can't talk about it. Mm-hmm. The only time that we talk about menstruation is when we want to pull someone down who's working on menstrual health work, around menstrual health. Yeah. So I always think that even if there is negativity coming in, it is a great opportunity for all of us, people who are working in the menstrual health space, to make it a point that it is important to have this discussion. Because that's how you learn that, these are the things that we need to address. These are the issues. These are the misconceptions that people have. And I am talking about educating the educated, because all the backlash that is coming is from the educated, privileged people who sit in the privilege and comfort of their homes, and they're keyboard activists, and they are all like, oh no, this is not important. No, you are, or somebody called us Desi Karen for doing this work. And I was like, that's new, that's smart. I was like, and I am thinking that, this is an opportunity. Have you ever spoken to a woman in your life? Do you know what menstruation does to your body? Do you know what it feels to not have a, any product, anything? Do you understand what does that feel? Do you understand, especially in the flood scenario, do you understand that, when you sit in the comfort of your home and you say, oh, these women are used to the cloth, don't send them pads. Do you know where they are going to wash their cloth? Do you know where they're going to dry off their cloth? Do you know what kind of diseases that can come with that? I'm not sitting here and advocating for any one product. I am not in that. I don't want to be a part of that discussion at all. But my concern is, are you listening to the people that you are working for? Because that is the first step of relief work. Like Sidra said, that, we need to do quick needs assessment, and it doesn't even have to be a formal needs assessment. You don't need like big fat surveys to do this. Just go out and talk to the people who are in that situation, and then come back and tell us that, what's happening. So for example, right now for Her Pakistan, we have our volunteers and community mobilizers and partners who are actually on ground, and they are sending us information that, this is what we need for this particular community. And they have been educated about the pros and cons of using a particular product or whatever. And if they're asking for pads, when we send pads, even if they haven't used the pads ever, they're educated on how to use the pads. And this whole idea, right now they are in a crisis situation, they don't want to learn. You don't know that. You don't know that. They want to learn. They're open to learning. When will we be open to learn? That is the question, right? If you don't talk about it now, when everyone is hating on it, you will not get another opportunity, because this is the only time we talk about it, when we are hating on it. So let's, like you said, let's capitalize this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a negative connotation generally, but I do think that that's what it is. And you're right about
why not?
We have to, talk about it. Like I'm constantly warned personally as well to not indulge online. I genuinely left Facebook behind because I felt like, it just got so toxic, and having those discussions with people is just, and even if you back it up, I think with some kind of proof. And I mean, the biggest proof is my gender, all of our genders. You're like, what more do you need? So it's quite, it's interesting there. But so Sidra, you were mentioning the quick needs assessment bit. Like, what would, like, in your opinion, like Sana has mentioned, for example, that, she's got the quickest way to sort of, and the best way to find out what the needs are.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So I personally support, grassroots level, community-based volunteers, and people who are from those communities, right? Even, maybe their homes haven't been destroyed, but they're still from the area. They know best, right? So connecting with kind of the local volunteers, just local community people, as best as we can, given the circumstances. If they can ask people like what they want in their ration packs, right? They can also quickly just ask women, what do you need for your, reproductive health? Like, yes, it's embarrassing, but in a disaster response, there's no time to be embarrassed, right? Or if you're going to be embarrassed for a minute, it's worth it if someone who's menstruating can, handle their period with dignity, privacy, and respect, right? And I mean, I definitely agree with Sana about it is an opportunity for education. Right now, for me personally, like it makes no difference to me if whatever man has his opinion about, whatever he thinks about MHM is irrelevant to me, right? Because women, trans people, anyone who menstruates, we know it exists. We know what we need. So my immediate focus is just on the menstruators and directly trying to communicate with them. Like, what do you need? I think it's great that there are certain organizations who are, if they are sending pads, for example, they're including a little leaflet, with pictorial of how to use it, right? So at the community level, like to the menstruators, there are efforts being made to make sure they know how to use it, supplement the material with, again, soap, maybe water tabs, things like that, that they can, again, manage, dispose, and all of that.
No, and thank you for being inclusive, actually, because you said, menstruators, and you included everybody in there. And I really appreciate that, because I think we tend to forget that. Even me personally, I'm learning on a day-to-day basis, but even I forget to include, trans and other people in the mix. And then that's a whole other discussion, unfortunately, because I think in order to have I think you have to take it one step at a time, right? It's like one battle at a time. So I think that's why, unfortunately, the discussion doesn't always, we haven't even been able to take it there. But Dr. Shakut, you were about to say something about the diseases, I believe.
I was just saying that before I got your message about this session, I was hearing this. There was a politician, I won't take the name, but he was talking to this anchor on CNN, and she was asking him that what the country needs. Like, I want to ask you what the country needs. And first off, he talked about tents, and then he talked about food, and then he talked about medical supplies. Okay, I get that. We need that. Yes, they are a priority right now. Yes, I do, because foremost they need a shelter. But then I was like, why did he just stop there? Like, why he didn't talk about why, just because he's a man, just because he's a minister, like he should tell other people that yes, we need this as well. We need proper food or proper hygiene products for our females. Like, those just say sanitary pads. If you're so ashamed of saying that, don't use the word. Just say we need hygiene products for our females, for our children. We need food for pregnant women or for breastfeeding mothers. Like, why we're not talking about these issues as well? I'll just give an example. This female, she came to me. I always give her space. Like, if there is something you want to tell me, in the absence of your husband, you can talk to me. And she just said to me that I have severe pain during my menstruation. I had severe pain when I'm meeting with my husband. And then when I inspected her, when I checked her, when I examined her, and she actually had a very big cyst. And these are really painful cysts. So what I said to her, I said, didn't you just get checked? She's like, I was ashamed to. I was like, what can I tell my husband? He would think that I'm no good now. So it was something, so I would say, like, I think men need to get to educated as well.
Just as a closing remark, what would each of you kind of say is the best way forward in this time of crisis, and just the general discourse surrounding menstrual health management?
I mean, I think I do want to acknowledge just that, there are people across Pakistan who are thinking about this stuff, and, there are really amazing organizations who are working. So I don't want to, discount any of the work. And I know people have the best of intentions. Like, it's great that you're even thinking about it. At the same time, I would just encourage people to, again, remember that it's not just about the material itself. It's about the entire management process. And just to remember, whatever aid we're giving, be it sanitary materials or, food, water, whatever, let's just remember, the recipients of that aid are humans, right? Just like us. So they need to be treated with dignity and respect. And we need to just keep that in mind of the way that we're giving aid, and again, not making assumptions about what we think is best for them or what we think they need. So trying to just keep it, community centered, and responsible, ethical ways of giving aid.
Let's be more responsible with relief work. We take it very lightheartedly. We take it like, oh, this is something that we're just going to do for the sake of doing it. Even with all the good intentions, if you're not responsible with this work, it's going to waste. It's not about how many pads that you are sending. It's about, are you making sure that they have the resources to manage their period? Do they have the resources to use the products that you are sending in the right, appropriate way? So work in collaboration, that is one thing that I hate about how we do relief work in Pakistan. Everyone is working separately. There is no connection in one particular community. Everyone is working in silos because everyone wants to make their own name. That, we did these numbers. We served these many people, but what about collaborative effort? What about, not doubling things? What about mixing things so we can provide better? So just one thing, be be more empathetic, listen to the people, and be more responsible with this work, because this is very, very important. And one last thing, let's not lose what we are doing right now, because there is going to be another disaster, there is going to be another calamity, and then we will start from point zero once again. So don't lose the learning that we have right now. Let's
to educate people, educate young females about proper sanitation, proper hygiene, how to use the products, how to dispose the products, not just during this flood time, but throughout their life, because these things can lead to, if we have further discussion, I would love to talk about it. These things lead to infertility as well.
Yes.
About, like, I see people, they're like, oh, fine, this is not something that's even after delivery, patients they menstruate, they have passage of blood.
To just round up the discussion, Sana, you mentioned that we have to be responsible. All of you have mentioned that, it's important to be consistent. It shouldn't only happen in times of crisis. It has to be something that we're doing constantly, the discussion around it, working to better it. And it's as simple as actually talking about it, like you said, or, correcting somebody in the moment, and just educating them. And we shouldn't make assumptions on the needs of these people that, and based on what's happening right now. I think a lot of people, like you said, are assuming that, oh, it's either menstrual products or it's food and water. Of course. And but thank you so much, you guys. This was a very enlightening discussion for me as well, personally. And thank you so much for joining DawnNews English in our little bid to kind of, put these discussions out there for the world. And hopefully we can do more of these soon.